Otherwise, we will just slowly start.
Okay. Viana or Mbak Reni, do you have any question?
No.
Pastor, I like to know, you mentioned a few times, if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned a few times about the term of true self. And then I checked to the text code of the Japanese translator, and then also the Dan Woodhouse. I cannot find the term for using the term of true self. Perhaps
Yes, true self is the translation of Paramatma. There is Atma and there
okay.
is a Paramatma. Paramatma is the supreme self. And the supreme self is very often identified with the Tathagata Garbha, with the metrics of Tathagata. And it is Paramatma is very common, and it is even mentioned here. The Gen War is Paramatma, not Atma. Now, according to the great, it comes here in our treatise also. This one mind is permanent, is bliss, is the self. Here it comes. The self war is not a ordinary war, but it's Paramatma. And I translate this Paramatma not to mix it with the self as ego. I translate it as the supreme self or as a true self. I think there is no problem. And as opposed to Hindu teachings, this is explained like in Lankavatara Sutra as being the skillful means, upaya. It is not something which absolutely exists, but in Buddhism, nothing can absolutely have existence. It is the skillful means to get to nirvana by means of the teachings of the Upanishads, which are the base for even for the Buddhist teachings. Buddhist teaching is also based, like the Upanishads, on the search of the true self. This true self, because the Brahmins, which are the educated class in India, especially in the times of Buddha, the Brahmins and also the Kshatriyas, the highest class, the educated classes, they were based on the Upanishads. They are very important. And the Upanishads, they explain in so many places the true job in life is search for the true self. And the old seers of India, they have explained the different systems how to get to the true self. And finally, it developed to Samkhya, Vedanta, and all the systems of Indian philosophy, even the Naya Vaisheshika, they still refer to the search for the true self as being the skillful means for practice and for understanding the logic of the world. So this is the background of Buddhism also. We cannot cut off the Buddhism from this background. Now, especially in Burma, where I was trained to great extent, they try to distinguish themselves from the yoga tradition and say the yoga tradition is purely Hindu. But actually, uh, I think this is baseless. Uh, because anyone who knows Indian philosophy will not be not agree with that. Buddhism is also another interpretation of yoga, just like Jainism. And so also all schools of important schools of Chinese philosophies are the interpretation of Tao. And Tao and yoga, they have a lot in common. So what we want to realize is Tao, is yoga. And yoga means literally the way. Tao in Chinese character means a head and the path, no? So we have to use logos, we have to use reason and direct experience to experience the true way. And the true way is beyond suffering. This is the Upanishads also. Hmm? So I think you should not look for any contradictions here. The true self is the supreme self, and the supreme self is the what the Buddhists search for, not the ordinary self.
Okay. Then when the Japanese translator, the Haketa, used the term of um true mind, is it the same with the true self or different? This is different.
Yes, it is a synonym, more or less.
Oh, okay.
It is a synonym, more or less, because all the phenomena come from mind, and mind is always changing, but the true mind does not change. And through the true mind, we understand the change. In the teaching of the disciples, we understand the nirvana, which is has no change, from the perspective of the change. But in the Mahayana, which is non-dualistic tradition, we understand the change, without which we cannot understand the world, with the background of the true mind, or of the emptiness, or of the suchness, or of the dharmakaya, or dharmadhatu, or dharmata. These are synonyms. And this is the bhutakoti, also synonym. This is uh, the true reality. The things as they are. And this is the method in order to understand this treatise, and we are trying to understand it in depth. You can only understand the change by, as the sutras of the great wisdom explain, you can only understand the change on the background of nirvana, which is not changing. And this is part of the Yogacara tradition in a way. So, by understanding that all is a mind, you also understand that the changing mind and the true mind, they exist together. They are not separated. And in the beginning of the treatise, we have distinguished in alaya, this is us, we are alaya. In alaya, we have the aspect of body and the aspect of no body. And these two aspects, they coexist. And this is the non dualistic approach to meditation. Hmm? Is it clear now?
Yes,
This is
Pastor,
very,
helpful. And then
this
when
is,
we refer to the Wisdom Sutra,
mhm,
when so it is more like when they say that uh, form is sorry,
emptiness.
form is
And
emptiness,
emptiness
and
is
then
form.
form is emptiness is a bit easier to understand, but emptiness is
Emptiness is
form.
form.
How we
Well,
under
wait, this is the subject, the matter of today's lecture. Huh? It is explained here. So please wait and we will come to it. Hmm? Okay?
okay.
Well, this is exactly what we're going to learn today. I hope we come to it. Hmm? So, shall I start with analyzing the text?
Okay, Pastor, let's.
So, uh, when, according to where we finished, we then we have understood that the tathata, there is a tathata mind, the suchness mind, which does not move. That we have learned. And this suchness mind does not move, does not differentiate. As soon as it stands still, its virtues are manifesting, we have learned. And uh, and it manifests to us, and this is the realization that these defilements that we experience, this uh, suffering, stress we experience, is not real. Hmm? This is what is Buddhism about. This is what uh, we should understand. This is all based on the teaching of the Wisdom Sutras. The mind which moves and which is inseparable from the objects which move, which is a world, is like a dream. Seven, many comparisons in the Wisdom Sutras, like a dream, like the second moon, like the uh, Gandharva Nagara, like the uh, cities of Gandharva in the space, like delusion, like illusion, like uh, like reflection in the mirror, like what else? Many wonderful comparisons, like the Marichi, the you can see like in some forms in the desert which are not there. And like Maya, which is the most common word, like illusion. This world and the mind which moves is just an illusion. But we, due to our ignorance, we identify with it. And that is a problem. And we identify with it because we are lacking something. Hmm? It says very clearly. When we take the objects in front of us as something existing, then the mind is lacking something. Mind wants to grasp something. So when we do not think, then we can understand the true nature of the mind, which does not move. But as soon as we start thinking according to this text, it means that the mind is lacking something. And what it is lacking is the wholeness. Hmm? The mind is by nature non dual, but because it does not see this non dual nature, it has the understanding that something is lacking. So it starts moving to, and that is this non-enlightened aspect in the alaya. Hmm? What we are. We have the non-enlightened aspect, always moving, and we have the enlightened aspect, which does not move. Hmm? But how to understand that actually they are one mind? By understanding the present. When we are in the present and do not think, then we can understand the true nature of the mind. This is the method explained in this treatise. And it is so wonderful treatise because the skillful means our author of this treatise is using to guide us to this knowledge. Actually, this knowledge we can explain in one sentence, like in the Heart Sutra. Very simple. But yet, we need a lot of logic. We need, that's why we have Pragya Paramitas. This is just explaining the Wisdom Sutras teachings, not more than that. All Mahayana is interpretation of the wisdom teachings. Uh, the wisdom teachings are Mahayana. Mahayana is a wisdom teachings. So the present mind, when it does not move, so it is pure, and it can see the movement as being illusion. And that is a one mind. That is a Tathagata Garbha. Tathagata Garbha is a true mind hidden behind the moving mind. In us beings, it is hidden, but when we are have non-dualistic realization, or when we practice based on faith, non-dualistic faith, then we will see and experience this moving mind as an illusion. And this is all the teachings of the Wisdom Sutras, not more, not less than this. So, when the mind does not move, then it has access to its own nature. And it can only happen when it does not take the object of thinking as something real. When it takes the object of thinking as something real, then it is, so to say, uh, distant from its true nature. Hmm? This is the Yogacara understanding. And this, in a way, it is not against Madhyamika. All Buddhists will agree that all the phenomena are contained in the mind. Even Dhammapada explained that. Hmm? So, when the mind does not move, it is endowed with immeasurable virtues, and it becomes a one mind. One mind, we have learned in the beginning and always explained again and again by different methods. This one mind is nothing but this Tathagata Garbha, but the Buddha nature. So they are no other objects, our treatise is explaining, outside the mind. And so there are also no other objects to think about, because this one mind is the our Buddha nature. And this Buddha nature is Buddha nature because it is suchness. And when we become Buddhas, we literally come in this suchness and go in this suchness. So the alaya for a Buddha is transformed into suchness. For us, not. Therefore, we still identify with the objects of thought, with the objects of the senses. So we are not Dharmakaya. But when we practice non-dualistic meditation, we eventually, we by faith and by continuous practice, we penetrate the true nature of the mind, which is non-dualistic. So the Wisdom Sutras, very popular in Tibet, is Vikrama Vikranti Sutra, the sutra about the right effort. It says, if the true wisdom have an object, it would be ignorance. This is very powerful. We should always repeat it to understand the meaning of this treatise. If the mind had a true object which can be grasped, which can be thought by the true aspect of the mind, by the Buddha nature of the mind, then it would be ignorance. Hmm? So if we want to realize the perfection of the mind, we have to understand the purity of the non-thinking mind, which does not, when we do not think, when we do not pay attention to objects as something being really there, separate from the mind, then, as author explained in the beginning, then we are adopting to the true nature of the mind. We are nearing the true nature of the mind. When it becomes a habit, our behavior changes. Things happen to us, but we don't take them so seriously because we don't identify with the moving mind. We identify with the background of the moving mind, which does not move. So we are uh, practicing truly, according to the sutras of wisdom, we are practicing truly uh, the uh, the supreme wisdom, non-dualistic wisdom. Because we have the objects, we cannot live without the objects, but we do not identify with them because they are products of causes and conditions, and whatever is product of causes and conditions does not uh, exist really. To exist really in the teachings of the Upanishads already, it is only the highest reality. Only the highest reality exists really. And the highest reality is the highest reality because it does not move. This is the essence of all Indian philosophy, not only Buddhism. So, this is the realization of the dharmata, of the true nature of the things. Even so, the things are moving because the mind is moving. It impossible that the mind does not move when the things are moving. And when the things are moving, it is also impossible that the mind which pays attention to the movement does not move. Yet, even while moving, this is the insight. It does not lose its Buddha nature. It does not lose the Buddha nature, which is the Dharmakaya. Everything is Dharmakaya. Everything is the Buddha. That's why the in these teachings We ignorant beings and the Buddhas are never separated. We are only separated by our ignorance. And ignorance, as we see here, is because we are missing something. So when we are missing something, we don't understand emptiness. Because in emptiness, nothing is missing. As the Heart Sutra, which is the essence of wisdom, explains, you cannot add something to it. This adding something to the true nature of the things is called samaropa, zheng-yi. When we add something, then the mind is moving. When we add something, the other thing we have to take away. That is called apavada. But in the suchness, there is no samaropa, there is no apavada. You cannot add something to it, you cannot take something away from it. Therefore, the emptiness is perfect. And when we identify with the moving mind, that means that we are lacking something. Hmm? So it is kind of a paradox. When we say in English empty, then it means something is lacking. But here it is exactly the opposite, because emptiness is the highest reality. But as the Wisdom Sutras explain, as soon as you take emptiness as something existing, you are deluded. Nothing exists, and nothing does not exist, because being a product of causes and conditions is beyond the idea of existence and non-existence. The movement is there, but in the movement, nothing stands. Nothing stands mean it can neither be existence, really permanent, and it cannot be also really impermanent, because impermanence is in opposition to permanence, just like nirvana is in opposition to samsara. And the opposition belongs to the moving mind. But all oppositions, as we will learn today, they are illusions when we understand the true nature of the mind. Hmm? In the true nature of the mind, precisely because it is emptiness, which is perfection, hmm? And then in the true nature of the mind, then nothing moves. It moves because something is lacking. But in suchness, in emptiness, in dharmakaya, nothing is lacking. That is why it is beyond this and that. It is beyond small and great. It is beyond all oppositions. So even emptiness is just a concept. But it is, in this tradition, the most useful concept for realizing the true nature of the mind. And that is a job of yoga, to realize the true nature of the mind. It is same in Buddhism as in the yoga tradition. We don't realize the true nature of the mind because we identify with what yoga calls chittavrittis, the movements of the mind. Movements of the mind are based on kleshas, on troubles, and troubles are based on ignorance, on perversions, because we take the impermanent as permanent, the that which does not bring lasting happiness as something bringing lasting happiness, that which is non-self as being the self, and that which is uh, impure as pure. So we are subjected to three perversions. perversions of view, perversion of perception, sanya, viparyasa, drishti, viparyasa, perversion of view, and the perversion of differentiation, vijnana, viparyasa, because the mind in the world is a differentiating mind. But because we don't see this, as our treatise explained, as these differentiations come from the background of suchness, then we are subjected to ignorance. So we don't see this moving mind like being in a dream, an existence like being in a dream. Hmm? Then we act, but based on ignorance, according to this treatise. Because we identify with ignorance. And the author continues, a very intelligent way. And furthermore, the functions of suchness it means that the Buddhas, the Tathagatas, at the original causal stage of practice, the very important to understand, the commentaries explain very wonderfully. I don't want to go into the commentaries now. There is the function based on cause, and there is also function based on the result of the cause. Because we don't see them as being inseparable. Therefore, as the treatise explain, we don't take this essence, qi, characteristics, or objects, xiang, and the functions, yung, as being one, because we have not penetrated the Buddha's mind, the suchness. So this Buddha's mind is based on the continuous practice of the punya, of the religious merit, and of knowledge, of wisdom, of vipassana. Buddha has practiced continually this equipment, sambhara, for enlightenment, for body, which is the religious actions or meritorious action, kusala karma, and vipassana, wisdom, awareness. Because he has practiced them for such a long time, then he gave rise, our treatise says, in the hetu bhumi, which means in the stage of causality. One attains the stage of result, which is body, by continuous practice of causality, and then by making them one through religious merit and through awareness, vipassana. So, by practicing in this way, they, the true Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, they give rise to great love and compassion. Great love and compassion, according to Wisdom Sutras, are the beginning of the bodhisattva practice, are the middle of the bodhisattva practice, and are the end of the bodhisattva practice. The wisdom sutras explain in this way. Hmm? We cannot enter truly the bodhisattva practice when we don't have the great love for all beings, including oneself, inseparable from all beings, and great compassion for them, because nobody wants suffering. We don't want suffering. The beings also don't want suffering. So the Buddha practiced exchanging oneself, as the uh, later interpretations of wisdom sutras explain, exchanging oneself for others. Hmm? And this also due to having the equipment of merit and insight, awareness, he then, by the practice of paramis, he then gathered sentient beings for Dharma, not only himself. He does not differentiate between himself and others. He sees all beings as the Dharma, and the world also as a Dharma. This is Buddha's teaching. One who sees Dharma sees the Buddha. One who sees the Buddha sees the Dharma. So they, by practicing the true Dharma, the equipment of merit and the equipment of wisdom, uh, expressed by the deep understanding of the practice of perfections, 6 or 10 perfections, or innumerable perfections. Hmm? So they uh, penetrate deeper and deeper into the true nature of the mind. And they start, as the text says, by giving rise to the great vows. Every bodhisattva has a great vows. The Avalokiteshvara becomes Avalokiteshvara due to great vows. The Samantabhadra becomes Samantabhadra due to great vows. Amitabha becomes Amitabha due to great vows. Hmm? So every bodhisattva has a great vows, and the great different vows based on the 4 basic vows. Hmm? Jung San Wu Pian, Shen Tu, Fan Nao Wu Jin, Shen Tuan, Fa Men Wu Liang, Shen Xue, Fu Tao Wu Shang, Shen Chen. I liberate not just myself, but all beings. I deprive not only my mind of trouble, but I deprive all minds of trouble without differentiation. I learn all the dharmas for this purpose, and I attain the highest realization, meaning the realization based on non-dualistic understanding of the practice. Hmm? So uh, this great love and great compassion and the paramis, they are the hetu bhumi, they are the cause of the Buddhas, and the cause is inseparable from the result, because you cannot strictly, this comes even in Theravada, you cannot separate the cause from the result, because neither cause nor result are standing, they are the process. And in the process, you cannot separate the cause and the effect as 2 separate entities. This is a mystery of Buddhism. And the whole Buddhist teachings, no matter which tradition, is based on this mystery. We are all and cause and effect cannot be separated. That's why the karma is never lost. Very deep meaning, which is not easy to understand. So how can we then get liberation if the karma is never lost? We have done so many unwholesome karmas. Hmm? When we think about it, we are very uncomfortable. So how to get even the Buddhas, according to the commentaries, they have done all kinds of unwholesome karmas. The Jataka stories explain that. Hmm? Even in this life, the Sakyamuni Buddha, according to Theravada commentaries, he has practiced some unwholesome karmas. Due to that, he had backache when he was old and so on. Hmm? But all this belongs to the illusionary body, not to the true body. And the so the true bodhisattva, he never separates himself from the realm of all beings. And he never separates himself from the knowledge that in the cause and effect, they can never be separated. This is true in the present, this is true in the past, this will be true in the future. So the text says the realm of beings and also the bodhisattvas do not limit the number of future kalpas. Hmm? That is the true practice. Hmm? True practice is understanding the function is never separate from the essence and from the characteristics. Hmm? So we are never separated from the essence. Because we are never separated from the essence, the phenomena that we see with our moving mind are also not separated from this essence. Hmm? This is the teachings of the Avatamsaka Sutra, Huayan. Hmm? Because the essence can never leave the phenomena, therefore the phenomena really, they are one whole, not separated. We see them as separated because we have not understood, as the author explains in the beginning, we have not understood the one mind having great essence, great characteristics, and great functions. But this can be only revealed when we don't grasp the object of thought as something being really there, as something being real, as something belonging to us, as something belonging to beings. When we believe that something really belongs to us, we also believe that something really belongs to beings. But in Buddhism, the self and the beings, they are not real when we understand something about nirvana. It does not mean not being real that they do not exist. They surely exist, but only in the conventional reality. From the point of view of highest reality, they never arose. And that which never arose can never cease. This is the deep meaning. This is the deep meaning of the karma, and cause and result can never be. Uh, they are, they can never cease. They will always be there. They will always be there because they are inseparable from the highest reality. So, in this sense, very wonderful. So, they do not give a limit to their practice. The limit is to understand no limit. So, when we realize the Dharmakaya, we will take one innumerable kalpa. Then, before we attain the stage of moving the objects by mind, the eighth stage of the bodhisattva, it will take another innumerable kalpa, then another innumerable kalpa uh, to get the perfect Buddhahood, plus 100,000 small kalpas. Each kalpa is also something which you cannot uh, grasp by ordinary mathematics. But you can grasp it by the mathematics starting with zero. And zero in Sanskrit means shunya. And the shunyata is not something that exists and not something that does not exist. Shunyata is something which we cannot grasp. Nirvana is also something which does not exist, something which exists. When one observes it in this way, then one will separate oneself from the whole, from the whole. And that is the worst mistake for a bodhisattva who wants to realize the highest realization based on these vows which he takes in the beginning. Due to these vows, he then realizes, as the text says, the great love and great compassion, which manifests then that he does not judge. He just sees things as they truly are, because in non-duality, nothing grasps. It is in duality which things are grasped. And when they are grasped, that means that we grasp at the object, which is a sign of object, nimitta, xiang, as something being real. Then we also grasp for sentient beings as something being really there, and as for the self as something being really there. So we are missing something, and this something is precisely what Avatamsaka Sutra, Hawaiian tradition, wants to lead us to. That is, the realization of mind is a realization of wholeness. This wholeness is always there. But the Sudhana, the hero of Avatamsaka Sutra, has to go to 52 teachers who all teach them in different dimensions the truth about the non-reality of the limitations of the mind. So, because the true bodhisattva, we try, but it's difficult, see all beings as their own body, yet they do not grasp any sign of real being or of real self. So taking a sign as something real, taking object as something real, is a perversion of the mind, viparyasa. And this viparyasa of the mind is of, as we have learned, of perception. Everything starts by perception. When we believe that our perception of the object is something real, and the object is also something real, which does not move. Then we have the viparyasa, the perversion of the view. And when we have the perversion of the view, we don't see things as they truly are. Hmm? So from perception, we have the view, from view, we have the differentiations, but the differentiation, if it is deprived of wholeness, is a wrong differentiation, is a viparyasa. That is a non-dualistic approach. The differentiation deprived of the whole is the wrong differentiation. And this wrong differentiation is based on wrong perception and wrong view. And here we are in our small world, not understanding that our uh, differentiations are at the base of non differentiation. And non differentiation and differentiation, they are together in our reality, which is this alaya, our mind, our store consciousness, which own things, and on the base of ownership, it produces things. But the true mind does not own anything. It is the alaya consciousness which owns something. But this ownership is not real. And this is what is to be understood. So the author explains further. What does it mean? It means that they, according to the true knowledge, they, that means these thoughts, objects of the thoughts, according to the true knowledge, according to the yatha bhuta jnana, to the way the things really are, they know all beings and themselves to be equal. That is a true knowledge. The true knowledge is only when we have, according to the commentaries, which are very wonderful, Fazang, only when we have the great cause, we can come to the great result. Without a great cause, there is no great result. And great result is the natural state, the suchness, which is the Buddhahood. And this suchness is, even though we are not Buddhas, it is always present in us in the form of this Tathagata Garbha, of the Buddha nature. So the true practice is the contemplation of the Buddha nature. All the phenomena come from this Buddha nature. So when we understand that, then we get the true knowledge. True knowledge is the knowledge of suchness. And the knowledge of suchness is also the knowledge that the cause and effect are never separated. When the cause is small, we get the small result. When the cause is great, as the Daimon Sutra is teaching, is based on uh, non-duality, then we get the great result, which is the true nature of the mind. So, as opposed to us, who are still subjected to differentiation. The Buddhas know that all beings and themselves, they are equal without a differentiation because they are practicing the great cause, the non-dualistic cause. They have penetrated that the cause and effect can never be separated. And when the cause is great, the great effect is always there. At first, we get knowledge of this great effect by faith, but as the text says, by correct practice, it is also part of us. Hmm? Then, from the point of view of the bodhisattva practice, which is based on the true reality, non dualistic reality, hmm, we become the inner putujanas, even so, the inner common man. Even so, we have not realized the non dualistic reality. We are nei fangfu. We are eh, in knowledge of the great reality. In the teachings of the disciples, we become the true inner common man before realizing the nirvana, but with undistractable faith in nirvana, when we have actually meditated on the true nature of the things and had in vipassana the knowledge of this, in insight into the true knowledge of the thing, and we don't doubt the inner commoner does not doubt that the impermanence, the stress of being in impermanence, and the selflessness of that which is in impermanence, and of impossibility to find the supreme purity in that which is impermanent. He has indestructible faith in that. Now we want to practice the bodhisattva path. We become the inner commoners when our faith in the non dualistic nature of our experience becomes undistractable. Hmm? Even though we have not yet realized the pure mind, which is not dualistic, our faith in non dualism being the true nature of our experience cannot be shaken. So we are sure to attain the non dualistic realization, just like a disciple is sure to attain an individual liberation by having indestructible faith that the true reality is just that impermanence, stress of being in impermanence, hmm? Selflessness of impermanence, and impossibility to attain the pure state in impermanence. So, this is a difference. We should be aware of it, and the author is leading us to that. Only the great cause leads to great fruit, and great fruit will never appear without, as he explains, a great love and compassion due to the practice of equipment, of punya, of merit, and of insight, of awareness. That here awareness is not just awareness of impermanence. In this tradition, even impermanence is not something which really exists. The pure, this true mind is also not something which really exists. The reality is a reality because it is beyond this and that, beyond this shore and that shore. When we understand it, then this great love and compassion will never leave us because we don't separate our experience with the experience of all sentient beings. So this brings the great realization of the immeasurable, what the Wisdom Sutras try to teach us, the immeasurable nature of the mind. The limits of the mind, as the wise Socrates also emphasizes, the limits of the mind are the limits we made ourselves. But what we made ourselves is based on concepts. But the true reality is not based on concepts, is not based on names, sentences, and syllables. This is how we communicate in different spheres of existence, and our mind is formed by communication. And we communicate in a different way when we are animals, when we are worms, when we are birds, when we are uh, gods, when we are humans. This is precisely what the Yogacara, the mind only tradition, and this treatise also belongs to the mind only tradition, wants to explain. We only know the concepts as being something definitive. That which really exists is beyond the concepts. So the true mind in this tradition is the highest reality, suchness, in which nothing is missing, to which nothing you can add, nothing you can take away, which is neither this nor that, precisely the teachings of the Upanishads. And that is the true self, Paramatma, not Atma, because it does not belong to anyone. So, as we have explained, the Lankavatara Sutra just says that actually the we are deluded because we don't see that this true mind and the alaya, they are not the different things. We take them for the different things. And the true mind is the highest reality, and the highest reality is suchness. Highest reality is Buddha. So the Buddha is Buddha because of his fulfillment of this perfections. So this is fulfillment of the great mind, not the small mind, which takes the thoughts as being something real. The big mind is a mind compared to, in the scriptures, to the space in which everything is included. Even though space has no form, nothing No form can appear without the space. Space itself has no form, but yet no form can appear without the space. And the forms appear, another example, like in mirror. In mirror, everything appears, but you cannot grasp it. In space of the mind, everything appears, but when you grasp it, you lose the space from which it comes. So to realize this non-dual nature of the mind, because we are so familiar with these perversions of the mind, which identifying our perception of the object with a real object, which we can identify with, which we can grasp, which we can make our own. Then, due to that, we have a wrong view, and we then act accordingly. Acting is based on mind. Without mind, no karma, no act. But as opposed to a real bodhisattva, we accumulate the karma. The bodhisattva does not accumulate the karma because he does not he may have deluded perceptions, but he does not identify with them at all. So they affect in him a very different reactions. We identify with them, so also they affect in us very different reactions. So a bodhisattva does not mean he does not think, he does not suffer, he does not cry, he does not laugh, but all this happens in the dream. When I was in Taiwan and in mainland China, I became quite close to Mengchang Jianglao, the very famous monk, because I was in Wutaishan, where he was teaching, and I was invited also to give a course. And we lived next door. So Mengchang means practice of Chan, practice of Zen in a dream. And he was really an example of practicing Chan in a dream. He always reacted appropriately without identifying. He taught, yet he did not identify with his teaching. So sometimes he was already, when I met him, like 90 years old. He died, I think he was already 100. So of course he forget something, forget here, forget there, but he always not identify, yet his teaching is very deep, but he does not identify with his teaching because he has pragya. So he can influence so many people and he can benefit so many people. Everywhere he was getting some handsome amounts, and he, as soon as he got them, he distributed in this temple, that temple, helping everywhere. Hmm? So many people, because he does not hold his property, he does not hold his wisdom, and he is fearless. He spent 30 years in labor camps, and there was a discussion. I should make my teachings a little bit more detached also. There was a discussion with him after his lecture, and he was always teaching to practice according to Pumen, the Lotus Sutra, the always remembering Avalokiteshvara, always remembering Omani Padme Hum. That's his mantra. Always Namo Kwan Shin Bosa, Namo Kwan Shin Bosa. And he said he was practicing this all his life practically. He became monk, I think, very, uh, very early. Then he was forced under the communist regime to disrobe, and then he again took ordination when the things were improving in China. Hmm? So always practicing Namo Kwan Shin Bosa. Now somebody asked him, Venerable Sir, Zhang Lao, you were reciting Namo Kwan Shin Bosa, but you uh, were 30 years in education in the labor camp, uh, having a suffering which is beyond our comprehension, even eating things which normally no one can digest. That's why he always had the digestion problem. He had to clean his intestines every day. Uh, and yet he survived. So that participant asked him, Zhang Lao, Venerable Sir, you were practicing always Namo Kwan Yin Bosa, and Pumen says when you practice it, you can avoid all distress, all difficulties, and you will never be uh, affected by them. But yet you spend these 30 years in hell. How does it come together? And he just laughs and says, yes, I practice all my life Namo Kwan Yin Bosa, but it's not enough. This is the detachment. And this detachment can only exist when we understand that there is something beyond appearance. And this is precisely this true mind. This is precisely this true nature of the mind, the suchness of the mind, which is the ultimate reality here. Mind is the ultimate reality. And ultimate reality is the true self. So let us continue. The text says, as bodhisattvas have such knowledge of great skillful means. What is a great skillful means of the bodhisattvas? Very easy. It is this great wisdom. Great wisdom of seeing non-differentiation in differentiation and seeing differentiation in non-differentiation. And that is only possible because of these vows. I am not going to liberate myself, I'm going to liberate all beings. For most of us, it's just empty word. But when we take it seriously, it becomes the true non-dualistic wisdom. So in China, when we train, we repeat these vows, Zhongshen Wu Pian Shi and Tu, I not liberate just myself, but all beings, before every meal, before every shower, on every occasion. We just repeat these vows in order to make them access to give them access to great wisdom. Great wisdom is a non-dualistic wisdom. So some sutras, Mahayana sutras, go as far as saying that for a bodhisattva it's better to go to hell than to go to nirvana, separate from all beings. But the true nirvana is not separate from all beings. So this is the great skillful means. So this great skillful means, they eliminate not only ignorance, the disciple, the arahat, he also eliminates ignorance. He does not identify with impermanence. He does not identify with any happiness he may have in meditation, and he does not identify with anything that could be called self, or what belongs to the self, or which is in the self or of the self. So he eliminates ignorance, but he, according to this tradition, he cannot eliminate the seeds of ignorance in the mind. The seeds of ignorance in the mind are our dualistic habits. Dualistic habits are the habits of separation. Because we have this habit of separation, we cannot practice, as the text says, we practice love and compassion. There is no arahat without love and compassion, but not great love and great compassion. Thus, if one practices with the base of this great skillful means, great upaya, one can not only attain omniscience, one can attain, arahat has also omniscience. He knows that the self does not really exist, but he does not attain omniscience in all aspects. He does not know that the self does not only exist in himself, but it does not exist in all phenomena that he experiences. So he does not want to separate from forms. The true bodhisattva does not separate from forms, because the forms are suchness, and the suchness is the form. Forms are emptiness, and the emptiness is the form. So when one relies on this understanding, then one has access to unthinkable karma, which is spontaneous, which does not rely on the differentiation, which relies on non-differentiation. So he can spontaneously react according to the state of the beings, according to the understanding of the beings. Always in relation to the beings, not separate from the beings. Not being separate from the beings is also not being separate from the world, because there is no being without the base, which is the world. No possible existence of beings without the worlds. The world, or worlds and the beings, they are inseparable. So the great functions based on understanding of the great essence and great characteristics of the essence, they are the understanding of the Dharmakaya. The Dharmakaya is inseparable from all phenomena and all minds. Because for a Buddha, there is nothing but Dharmakaya. The Buddha is the Dharmakaya. So the true bodhisattvas, and this is very difficult, are just like suchness. They are omnipresent because the mind, true nature of the mind is omnipresent. They act spontaneously. That means they act spontaneously without even showing out that they are acting. Hmm? Mengchan, the dream samadhi. So they see their own reactions in a dream and they see reactions of the beings in the dream. So they act spontaneously. And act spontaneously means act in accordance with the true reality, which is suchness. There is no other reality. So, because they have access to this reality, which cannot be attained, you cannot attain the true reality because it is beyond existence and non existence. Something that you attain is by definition either existing or non existing. But this true reality is of beyond this and that. So, as the Heart Sutra says, by uh, practicing putta, by practicing aprapti, by practicing not achieving, they achieve everything. Hmm? Wu's water finally is the Wu Shang Bodhi. Not attaining anything means attaining the supreme enlightenment, not individual, but together with all beings. So the non-practice of non-attainment is the practice of attainment. This is very difficult to understand. So if one understand this, then one can act spontaneously. So if one acts spontaneously, no tension. Some psychologists, now in very modern, explain the samsara as the state of attention, mental tension, bodily tension. And also in natural medicine, in Ayurveda, it is said that all diseases of the mind and the body are based on lack of wisdom. This is one of the first sentences in the Ayurveda, Indian natural medicine scriptures. Because we are sick in body and the mind, it means that we have committed crime against the wisdom. And what is the crime against the wisdom? Because we want to appropriate something, hold to something which does not belong to us. These gunas also don't belong to us, yet they are everything we have. So this non-dualistic teachings is also in many ways related to the teachings you will find in the medical treatise. And these great teachers of Buddhism like Asanga, Nagarjuna, they were familiar with medicine and based a lot of their teachings on the medical treatise. And here we have the same ideas. Because we are grasping, we don't understand that in aprapti there is prapti. In the non-grasping is the attainment. So this so this is very important to contemplate on, and this is what illumines the wisdom, illumines the path, and when the path is illumined, then we always live. This is a Mahayana practice. This is a practice of the Pure Land. We can say the Pure Land practice is a Mahayana practice. We are not separated from all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, and how we will learn in the next lesson. There was some message I was unable to read it.